So while I clean these up, wait for a couple of you to pop in. Another very impromptu stream that was brought on by having a chat with a very good friend. A young man who's recently got married and who's expecting him and his wife are expecting their first child. One of 3 couples that are in that situation. So it was a very interesting little chat we had, and I thought, well, it's actually quite a cool topic, and I thought it might be useful for other people to hear about. Okay, there's at least 1 or 2 of you in here, so let me know if the sound is okay, and then I shall begin. Oh, there's also a couple of good news that I've got to mention. One of the things I found out is that apparently, still early stages, but in fact, let me find that link. Let me just get that. Oh, I was hoping that I was done with the stink bug, but no. So, what I've put in the chat there is... hello Sam. Hello Caleb. Okay, why is this not going? Alright, so I put a link in the chat there, and excuse me while I kill this stink bug. We just don't want to understand that if they bother me, they're going to die. Spider got that one. Well, I just killed another 2, so I don't know if one of them was the flying one or not. But anyway, nothing improves a stream quite like murder right at the beginning of it. So, where was I? Hello. Oh yes, thank you. The sound is working. Good. So, where was I? Oh yes, I've put the link, and it should be able to be shipped anywhere around the world. It's not going to be particularly cheap, but the reason I'm going to be selling it is because the olive oil from my farm, physically, as well as several other farms around here, has been voted the best olive oil in the world. No joke. World Expo 22 and 23, World Expo 24, you know, the expo comes out the year after. So that one hasn't happened yet, but there it is. Oh, you bastard. No, he's still alive. Anyway, because we've got the best olive oil in the world, I am gonna... Come on. He just doesn't want you to know about the olive oil. Oh, shit. He's fighting back. This is a tough one. Where is he? Okay. So, that's a 3rd one now. Unless I'm infested by them. Anyway, the point about the olive oil being best in the world is not... I'm gonna, you know, you can obviously use it on your salad dressing or whatever, but the whole point of olive oil is that it turns out there's a multi-billionaire guy called Brian Johnson, who's kind of a freak, probably autistic. He spends like $2 million a year to find out how to like live forever, and this guy does everything. I mean, he does blood tests, he does like ECGs, he monitors his sleep, his like nightly erections, you know, he's a complete freak. He measures everything to the nth degree. And what they've discovered is that pure quality olive oil, and now I'll explain about olive oil. But the best olive oil, if you take like, a big spoonful of that with every meal, it heals inflammation and all sorts of things better than anything else, better than prescription medicine, pretty much. And this guy literally measures everything to the nth degree. So and his information is actually free on his website, I think. So I'm gonna go and look it up and understand exactly the concepts, and then he said it's free use, so I can use his information. But this guy sells like 750 ml bottles of olive oil of good quality for like $60. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, I've got the best olive oil in the world. I can sell it in 1 liter tins, so they don't need to be fancy bottles that like prevent UV because it's a tin. It's UV resistant. And it literally is the best olive oil in the world. Now, when you're talking about olive oil, the olive oil you buy in a shop, that's not really what I'm talking about. That olive oil is blended, is mixed in with other stuff, and even when they say pure extra virgin olive oil, cold pressed, blah blah blah, it's still a blend and it's still got other stuff in it. Sometimes they use I don't know what the technical term is, but like you can squeeze the olive oil and then you can get another kind of olive oil out of the mess that's left. So it's a pretty involved process. The olive oil that I make, mine, is cold pressed. It's unfiltered, so you at the bottom of the tin you get a little bit of sediment, which means that all the all the stuff that prevents oxidation, like prevents the free radicals from harassing your body and destroying your cells, and gets rid of inflammation, is like it's the best that it can be. And the thing is, I've tested it on myself, because once I heard this, I was like, yeah, okay. And I started drinking just like a little shot of like olive oil, like throughout the day. I'll have like 2 or 3. Man, it improved. You guys remember I was all strapped up with like, well, I forgot. I've got like some pink tape on my fingers now because I like injured one of my fingers. But like I used to have it all over my arms and elbows and stuff, and that's been bothering me for like a year now. As soon as I started doing this, within 2 days, gone. And then I forget about it. If I forget about it for 3 or 4 days, then like I let it get a bit of pain in my joint again, because I'm cutting down stuff with the chainsaw and I'm working and so on. As soon as I start again the next day, I'm fine. So as long as I drink this thing, the inflammation is gone. It's like fucking magic. I've literally never come across anything like it. So it does work. And also, the kids, my wife, everybody's been ill, but I've been drinking the stuff, and I didn't get sick, which is unusual because I'm usually the first one to get sick. So I'm just figuring out if I can standardize like shipping costs around the world and that sort of thing, and double checking customs, which countries I can do and whatever. But I'll be selling that stuff because I'm figuring, hey, and the multi-billionaire guy, he's got like olive oil from Chile, which, okay, but it's nowhere near the best olive oil on the planet. So that's the good news that I've got. The other bit of good news is that one of the crusaders that like follow me and like like with friends and so on, he bought a house here. Today we actually physically went to pick up all the papers. He's been here a few days with me. He's got a little house, which needs a little bit of work, but we might also have found a couple that might want to move in and actually fix the house up for him. So we said, hey, if you fix the house up, whatever you spend on doing that would take it off the rent, So we got our first Sede crusader moved into the area. Well, he's not moved in yet, but he owns the house. And he's helped me today quite a lot. We had to knock down another big tree that was a bit of a danger, and as a result of that, we've got more firewood now for the rest of winter with any luck. And I'm now drinking an Aperol Spritz with you guys in a heretically poured into a German beer glass, which is wrong, but and so when eventually that happens, which might not be that far away, it'll be at that same link that I put up there, where that's where all my digital books you can buy at much cheaper than you can get them on Amazon, and it's direct to me, so I get a better percentage. So right now we'll get to the topic, which is babies and so on. And let me just quickly catch up with the chat. Hello, Sam Coker. I like gloves. What gloves do you have? Oh, is Sam Coker one of these freaky guys or what? Those weren't gloves. If you're talking about what I was trying to kill the thing with, it was a little toiletry bag. And National Nationalist says, so much olive oil is from Tunisia. Yes, it is. Right, now, babies and raising children. So, let me find this chat that I had with this friend, which is actually really interesting. Where are we? Okay, so we just started a random just talking, but and I told him, look, this chat's actually quite interesting. You mind if I read it out to like people? And he's like, yeah, I've got no objection. So like I said, this is one of 3 couples that I know that are all young. They're all under 30. They're all waiting the first child. Oh, but we started talking about rifles and stuff because he was talking about which gun to get and that. So we started talking about that, which later in the stream, some of you guys remind me, and we'll talk about what the best one solution rifle is. But about the babies, let's see, where does that come in? Let's start talking about. All right, so I asked him, so how's your wife doing? And he's like, she's doing good. She's sleeping a lot recently, which is expected. And I said, yeah, well, it's tiring to build another human beings. And I said, you guys will not find out if it's a boy or girl, right, until birth. So he said, oh, there's another interesting theological bit there I'd missed. But anyway, he says, no, we're going to wait. She's got a scan to see if the baby is healthy, but I don't want to know until the baby is born. And there's a little joke I say there, I'll tell you later. And I said, that's awesome. Like neither me nor my wife are actually patient enough. So whenever she got pregnant, we immediately wanted to know which is a boy or a girl. And his comment on that was, it's one of life's greatest surprises, in my opinion. I don't want some doctor who has probably sanctioned hundreds of abortions to tell us. To which I said, you're absolutely right. But I'm just a partially irradiated and scarred over Gen X from the boomer wars. You have it right and should keep at it. Gen Z for the win. And I also mentioned, your wife is a lovely woman. And I wasn't sure until I saw her here with you, because the last time I'd seen her, she was quite young. It was quite a few years ago. And I said, you did good. You got a good one, sort of thing. And he's like, haha, yeah, she's great. I'm sure she will do an awesome job with kids too, which was a big reason for me wanting to settle down. And he said, I just need to make sure that my children don't turn out too soft and nerdy. Which is like, well, they don't have any chance of that because you're their dad. They'll be naughty little people with like angelic faces from their mom, which makes them get away with murder. Best of both worlds. Kind of like mine, except mine are proper savages with relentless barbarism from both sides. To which he said, I'm kind of hoping for a girl to begin with. I think being a father for a few years before trying to raise a man much greater than myself would help a lot. I was going on about my own kids and saying, one hopes their intelligence will keep them out of jail. To which he said, yeah, ours will definitely get their barbarism from me, because his wife really is a lovely woman. She's great. So I said to him again, I'm surprised by your wisdom, as always. You're a much wiser man than I ever was at your age. Good man. And he says, yeah, I hope they're intelligent, but also not obsessed about being smart. to which I said, yeah, look, raising a boy is easy. because like us, they're simple creatures. And I said, yeah, don't worry, they'll be fine. Like no kid really worries about how smart he is. Just don't make that a thing, and they'll be just fine. And we kind of had the same idea on that. And his kids will be smart because he is, and so's his wife. And IQ's mostly genetic anyway. So, and he goes, yeah, there has to be a balance. Nerdy shit is great, but being a nerd is not. To which I said, yeah, samurai way. A warrior must be proficient in poetry or art or music or all of them, and philosophy and religion, but he must also be capable of bathing in the blood of his enemies while in combat without blinking. And a human soul is vast, so you should try and fill it with as many different things as possible. And he goes, yeah, that's sound advice. Besides, there is nerdiness to being a hunter or to being a fighter. You got to use your brain in whatever the thing. But the thing is, mostly children. Something that my father told me, when my first girl was born, and I didn't really believe him, but he was absolutely right. Children are born pretty much as they are. You can sort of influence them a bit, but DNA is much stronger than anything else. And he says, yeah, I can't wait, though, what a good education will do for them. It's hard for people who had public education to fathom what a good education looks like or how beneficial it is. And my best advice is don't cripple them and help them boost their strengths and minimize their flaws, and that's about it. And then they'll find their own way. They need to find their own way because that's the natural way for them to be. It's kind of like Systema, like most martial arts try and rigidly teach you, this is how you block punch, this is how you block punch, this is how you block kick. But life's not really like that. While Systema is like, don't block anything, just like survive it. Do whatever you need to do for your body, for your way of thinking, for your way of being that makes you survive that attack, whatever it is. And it becomes unique to you. That's a better system. And that's how I think you should train kids. Every kid is already, like I can see my son, my daughters, they all have their own person. They're born with it. They're born with their own personality. And then you can kind of help them avoid the pitfalls of their personality and help them improve on their strengths of their personality. But, more or less, they're kind of there. To which he said, yeah, that's sound advice. And as for the education, I told him, look, I had decent schooling, but it was never pivotal. I learned to read at home. And I was reading full-blown novels before I entered any formal education. And the only 3 months of actual school that I did when I was small, I was 4 years old, and I still remember it because it was hell. I hated it. And I reckon it would have damaged me because it was stifling and it was just fucking horribly shit. I didn't go into formal school until I was at least 7. And I'm grateful for it because I learned to read and write, and I was curious. So I learned, I read. Like I said, I was reading full-blown books by the time I was 7 and going for the first time to a proper school. And I said, yeah, you teach your children and you will do 100 times better job than any teachers will. Tell them stories and teach them how to do maths and figure out things like navigation by the stars and so on. And they love that stuff. They love to learn, so he goes, yeah, exactly. And then I told him, I'm getting the idea of doing a stream, like reading out this chat. To which he said, yeah, I've got no problem with that. And he read an interesting couple of paragraphs about education as a silent weapon. So he sent me a screenshot of the book he's reading, and it's the book is Behold the Pale Horse by Bill Cooper. It's a very interesting book, and the guy, he was killed for writing that book, partly I think, as a bunch of other things as well, but anyway, so the point was, he's a young guy, but he's got his head screwed on right, and he understands the concept that what it means to be a parent, really, which is very impressive at his age. And Nationalist says a goal first can help raising the other children. And that's true because, he's a sedevacantist Catholic, so he's young, they're probably going to have a dozen kids. And I can absolutely vouch for that because my daughter, 12-year-old, Also the 8-year-old, but the 8-year-old is still a bit small, and she's also quite different personality. But the 12-year-old is an excellent like babysitter slash big sister slash substitute mom. She's really very, very good, and she actually likes doing it. Her littlest sister, who's only one, she like carries her around, and they play together, and they actually have fun. It's not like a chore. I mean, obviously, she's still a kid, so it's not like an all-day thing or anything. But she'll happily look after her little sister for like an hour or two without, pleased to do it. And similarly with the 3-year-old, she'll look after the 3 and the 1-year-old girls like very happily. With the boy, he's very energetic, and he's a boy. He's boisterous, and he likes playing a bit rough and whatever. But when it's just the two of them, when it's just the boy and my eldest girl, they also have fun, because she's big enough that she can kind of win any kind of wrestling match, because he's only 4, she's 12. But he's strong, he's tough. So it's like he's made her cry before by like hitting her when they're playing a bit too rough, and he like kicked her or something, not intentionally trying to hurt her. But he's a tough little dude. So and yeah, it's true. Girls naturally make good like child rearers, I guess. So but the main thing was, there's something else that I was thinking about today when I was cutting the wood with the chainsaw. And it's like, apprenticeship. Like we were talking about that because one of the guys was possibly having an opportunity to become an apprentice plumber or whatever. But they wanted a young guy so they don't have to pay him much, and they train him up. And I was thinking, well, that's kind of a little bit unfair, because just because the guy is young, you want to pay him shit. But you want him to be like loyal to you guys for years. But what are you giving in exchange? And apprenticeship would be great if you were guaranteed that career path, if you call it that, for decades, which you're not in today's world. You just aren't. And the way that apprenticeship really does work and is good is from father to son. Because I was thinking, when I'm out there doing stuff or whatever, and my son is looking at me and I teach him how to do it. And I was also thinking that because the guy that bought the house, he's also a lot younger than I am, and he was helping me, so I was telling him, okay, do this, do that. And like with all young guys, people whatever in their 20s or even early 30s, and you're doing a job they haven't done before. Even if it's simple shit like cutting wood or whatever, and you tell them, okay, do this, do that, or get me this or get me that, and they're like, very often they're not like a quick study necessarily. They're sort of like, oh, well, how do I do this? Or like, oh, they'll bring you the wrong tool, or they can't sort of like think ahead to like what's going on. And I was thinking, what is that? Is that like lack of experience? Is that lack of situational awareness? Is that lack of IQ? What the fuck, And I was thinking, well, when I was their age, what was it like for me? And I was like, I was always looking ahead. So I didn't have that issue of like not knowing what would happen next. If I did have an issue of not knowing what would happen next, it was lack of experience. It was like I was ignorant of the process and I had to see it. But that's the whole point. If you're doing an apprenticeship, if you're learning from your dad or an older guy, what you're doing is you're doing the menial tasks. Because like when we were cutting the wood, so I was chainsawing everything and he was collecting the wood, putting it in a wheelbarrow, carting it off to the wood storage and piling it up and coming back. So he was doing the grunt work, which sounds, boring and stupid, but he's younger, he's fitter. My back's giving me some trouble already just from using the chainsaw like for a couple of hours. And he can see what I'm doing. He can watch. If he's paying attention, he'll see, okay, how does the chainsaw start? How does he hold it? What is he doing? And I told him, like, don't ever follow me for health and safety advice. On anything, on guns, yes. On anything to do with guns, you can follow my health and safety advice. On anything else in life, don't. Literally nothing. Okay, but other than that, you can see how the chainsaw starts, you can see what this tool does and what that tool does. So he learns by, and naturally speaking, in the past, what would happen is a little kid would help his dad out and he'd learn the trade as he's going. You just learn how things are done by watching his dad. That's how proper apprenticeship works. But again, in the old days, a son would learn from his dad and would carry on that trade and build up on whatever his father did or left him. That's how it should be. And that is where it should go, because, another topic that we're discussing, man, fucking stink bug. There it is. Right. Sorry, guys. I have to kill this guy. He's bothering me. There we go. Where did he land? Well, if he gets up again, I'll just knock him down again. Another thing we're talking about when we were going to pick up his papers for his house was like how, like the modern world is totally screwed up because the people who control the production of money, the actual production of money. If you think about the Federal Reserve creates money out of thin air, sells it to the government at cost, and then the government is in debt to the Federal Reserve for the money that got built out of thin air. Now, if you think about the people that invented this system, it's kind of genial. I mean, it's very smart. It's absolutely evil, of course, but it's very smart. And also, that means the people who control the production of money also control who gets it and who has to work all their life to earn just enough to survive. You can't break out of that system unless you break out of the whole money system, which means you have to create your own economy, which you can only do that in a community. Are you starting to see why I've got the Kurganet here, and all the city guys are like, yeah, let's just buy property there. Let's just move next to that guy. Let's just build it up. I said it back in 2014 or 2013, somewhere there, when I on a stream with Vox, actually, that I said in the future, two things will be very important. One is Christianity, and the other one is city-states. To which he said, oh, that's interesting, because this guy's not a Christian, and I wasn't at the time. But Christianity is absolutely important, and so are city-states. When I say Christianity, of course, I always mean sedevacantism, Catholicism, proper Catholicism, which is sedevacantism, because all the other diluted forms of Christianity just won't do it. The only guys that may, have a shot are the Eastern Orthodox, although they're schismatics, and as far as I'm concerned, their theology is wrong. But as a nation, currently in Russia, Eastern Orthodoxy is certainly keeping them united, is one of the things keeping them united. And religion is absolutely pivotal. It's very important. So becoming a Sede Catholic is absolutely important. If you want to be in the Kurganet, then you've got to be a Sede Catholic, that we are that way inclined. You've got to be not only just a Sede Catholic, but a non una cum Sede Catholic, which means that when you go to the Mass, Latin Mass, you go to a Mass where they do not join the name of the heretic, satanic Bergoglio with the Holy Mass. Don't do that. So, that's kind of like where we're going from. But the thing is, you've got to have your own economy. How do you have your own economy? Well, if one guy plants potatoes, the other guy farms pigs, the other guy's got chickens, and the other guy's got olives, and, it becomes a trade. You don't actually even need money. Like the concept of money, that people think, oh, you need money. Money is just an idea that we all agree on. And it can be anything. Money could literally be rocks, okay? Now, everybody's got rocks, and it's like, oh, well, so you kind of want to make it a bit special, so it's a rock with a little inscription on it. But then if you can create money out of thin air, like the Federal Reserve, then it means nothing. It has to have some kind of limit to it. So the actual original way that money really worked, and the countries that did this, in my understanding, were the southern states during the American Civil War. Germany, I believe, did it with the Reichsmarks. And any country that did this, suddenly their economy completely boomed. They got from absolute dregs, they became like wealthy in every sense. And what they did is, instead of making the money fiat money, which is based on debt, because remember, Federal Reserve issues you $1, your government now owes the Federal Reserve $1 and paying interest on it. That dollar is debt-based money. If you have money that's based on actual production, what you have is, as a farmer produces so many olives, the value of his olive is X, and that's the value of what the GDP is. The production of the nation is the total production of what you actually produce. Not what that production is worth in terms of the fake money, but rather, you know, if we all agree that one olive is whatever, 1 cent, then 10,000 olives are 10,000 cents. And if you agree that one olive is equal to, like, you know, or 100 olives is equal to 10 eggs, and then you know how much an egg is worth, and so on. So you're producing, if money that's being created on the basis of the actual production, of the actual work that achieves something, which means no usury, which means no like share, you know, like fake shares, like things like, you know, shorting things, playing the stock market in terms of like hypotheticals, which is basically a bet, that all falls away. But the minute that you sort of like say, you know, because I've got like whatever, 5 hectares of land, some truffles, some olive oil, some olives, technically I'm a wealthy guy, technically. But in my pocket, I got fuck all at the moment, right? So it's geared in a way where a guy like me, if he works like his ass off all day, maybe he can just about scrape enough to like feed himself and his children. While a guy that's like trading on bets on random things that don't really even exist, he can be owning yachts and jet planes and having mansions all around the planet. And that doesn't really make sense, does it? What is that guy doing? What is he producing? What is he actually physically doing in the world? Nothing. He's not doing anything good. He's consuming stuff based on this fake money. So in order to get out of that economy, you have to create your own economy, which means you have to create either your own agreements or your own money or something like that. The technology exists to do it, and even without digital technology, you can just agree that. You don't even need a computer, you don't need a smartphone, you don't need a calculator. You can literally shake hands with your neighbor. When does that work? When you shake hands, your neighbor sticks to his word and you stick to yours. When does that work? When both men are absolutely clear on their philosophy. Now, which philosophy is written down where you can't argue what's correct? Which religion? None, other than the Catholic one, which has got the Code of Canon Law. All the dogmas of the Catholic Church, how to behave, is in that book, Code of Canon Law. No other fake Christian religion has all the rules written down. No other religion of any kind. They've got their holy books and scripture and blah, blah, blah. But they don't tell you this is how you behave and this is what you do and that's the rule. Now, if you call yourself a Catholic and you give your word about something and you break that word in that community of Catholics, you're like scum. He's a liar. Why would anybody trust a liar ever again about anything? And there are whole tribes that function purely on lies, fueled totally by lies. And of course, they hate Catholics more than anybody. Any tribe of people, any culture of people that lives from morning till noon till night by lying absolutely wants to destroy the Catholic Church. And they have done so over about 200 years. They've infiltrated in every way, shape, and form. And they've been largely successful. Since 1958, we haven't had a real pope because of it. Oh, man. Here you are again. You were really playing dangerously. That one flew me on the head. Come on, where are you? Oh, it's playing dead. That's amazing. Well, now you're not just playing dead. You actually dead. There we go. So yeah, if you've got the same philosophy and you understand, and you know, if you say, oh well, only you're saying only Sedevacantist Catholics are honest. No, I'm not saying that. If you live in a Muslim community and you all understand your Muslim ways and you're like hardcore Muslim or whatever, I'm sure that works for you. It won't work for any Catholic, won't work for anyone else. Ditto if you're a Jew. You know, if you're a Jew and all your Jewish friends, you all deal with each other in your Jewish ways that work for Jews. Okay. Doesn't work for us. Doesn't work for me. Doesn't work for anybody who's not one of you. And that's why I'm saying, you know, in the Kurganate, we're Sedevacantist Catholics. And that's it. And that's why another rule I said is like, look, if you guys want to join my little community, it's not a democracy. I'm like the emperor. And it doesn't matter if you think I'm an asshole. I don't care. The reason I'm the emperor is because somebody has to like make decisions, and I'll listen to you guys. I'll listen to everybody. But at the end of the day, if I say X, then it's X. And they're all like, yep, we're okay with that. I don't like to be the leader. I don't want to be the leader, but it's like I'm the oldest of the bunch and I kind of came up with the idea and I kind of figured it all out. And so, you know, that's how it is. And I'll now have a sip of my Aperol Spritz. Let me just catch up with the chat as well. Adam Snyder, who's been sending me drunk emails and drunk comments on the blog, so says, about how much is land over there for a small lot or a small unit to live in the rent? Land here depends on what's on it. If it's unfarmed land, it's cheaper. If it's a certain type of natural forest, you can't chop it down, so it's got some rules to it. Depends what's on it. It ranges from about, 2-3 grand per hectare to 20, 30, 40 grand per hectare, depending on what's on it. A well-maintained, flat olive field be about 10, 15 grand per hectare. I've got white truffles on my farm, so those are more expensive, but it's not much. I mean, to give you an idea, the guy who bought this little house, that little house has got a little piece of land that goes with it as well, and that little piece of land, man, there's just so many of these bugs. That's why I've killed like 5 of them. It's not one, it's a lot of them. So the house has got like a little plot of land that, to give you an idea, it's certainly enough to plant a little, a little farm, a little homestead garden of like whatever, plants, potatoes, whatever. And at the back, he's got a smaller lot, which would be also small. And he's next door to an old lady that owns quite a lot of land. She owns about 1.5 hectares. And she's the kind of old lady that if you told her, hey, listen, can we build a nice little chicken coop on your land because you got a bit more of it? I'll look after it, I'll build it, and I'll give you some eggs. She'd be like, yeah, fuck it, go for it. So, and he paid for that house with a bit of land attached to it, all told, including all expenses of the notary public, of taxes, of the estate agent, which they're really kind of expensive. The estate agent takes a big fat chunk. All told, all put together, he paid like 41k euro, 41k euro, which is 41,000 euro, which is like, and the house has got a nice big bedroom upstairs, a tiny bathroom upstairs. Downstairs, it's got like a little kitchen area with a proper chimney, with a proper fireplace, but also like a place for a stove, a place for a sink, a place for a little microwave, which is sort of right in the entrance, and a little nook where you could like have your breakfast, small table, whatever. Then he's got like a lounge area where it's like would be your entertainment, TV / couch, whatever. But then he's got another room which is incomplete. It needs to be dug down a bit because it's like you'd have to like take a couple of steps. You have to dig up the ground inside the room because the ceiling is really low, so you want to make it like walkable. And depending on whether you've got foundations there or not, proper foundation, you might have to build a ring beam around the walls. And for that house to rent it, No, 41K is to buy it. You own it outright. 41K is not to rent it, it's to buy it outright. To rent that place, to rent that house, we actually saw a couple that seems they might be interested in taking it on. And they might be interested in taking it on while doing works on the house, to which we said, well, if you fix the house the way we want it, and you even build up that other room, because that other space, you could build another bathroom and another bedroom easily there. So, you'd have to spend probably a few $1,000s to like do that, depending on how, you can always spend as much as you want, but you'd probably need to spend about, I'd say another 3, 4, 5 grand to like make another room and another bathroom there that's like as cheap as possible but works and looks okay. So you could call it like 45 grand, call it 50 grand. You'd have a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, lounge, kitchen area house with a chimney in it, and a wood stove as well. It's got a wood stove in there, and some land with a little shack at the back for your tools, a little shed that you could plant some things in, and a little tiny garden at the back, which you could, just make a little veranda space for like drinks or whatever. So the rent on that, 350 euro a month, 400 euro a month. So it's cheap, it's not expensive. It really isn't. Like I said, the house needs a bit of work, but if you're looking at 50 grand for a comfortable, nice house, doesn't really have any issues, why not? And your bills, if you watch what you're doing, electricity and water wise, are probably be around 100, 120, 130 bucks a month, something like that, for electricity and water. Add a phone in there, call it a couple of $100 a month on, services. And the rent being, let's say, on the expensive side, let's say 400. You're looking at about 600 bucks a month to like rent and all your utilities and everything included. And if you're a single guy, you can probably get by on about 600 bucks a month food-wise. Food, petrol, your phone, whatever. So, look, we're a family of like 7 now, and I've calculated, which I'm not earning at the moment, so it's a bit of a problem, but I reckon I need a minimum of about 3 grand a month to like just kind of break even and maybe save a little tiny, not necessarily save, but like have enough to like put aside for things like the yearly car insurance and shit like that. So, if you're a couple or a couple with a small kid or something, 2 grand a month, if you're earning 2 grand a month, you're laughing, you're doing fine. So let me just catch up with the rest of the thing. Haha, same for me in regards to health and safety. Guns, I'm good. Everything else, I'm kind of a madman. Dude, the shit I've done with like a chainsaw on top of a tree while I'm halfway up, it's just... Do not copy anything I do, like health and safety wise, except for guns. Guns, I don't know, I was just raised that way. Because my friend, the same guy, was talking about, which rifle to get in that. So I told him, look, read the blog post where I tell you to go for the SFAR. It's a Ruger, like assault rifle. So it's a semi-automatic rifle, but it's a Ruger. And I told him, get the one in 308. Don't get the 5.56. Just get the 308. Then you're out. Once you train a little bit, and you're kind of good, you can reach out to 1,000 meters with that. Definitely 600 to 800 meters, no problem. It's semi-auto, so it's quick, even if it's like close stuff. If I could only have one rifle for like, the apocalypse, I'd pick that, the SFAR Ruger in 308. In 308, make sure, not 5.56. It's a light gun. It's only like 3.5, 4 kilos, so you can run around hills the whole day with it. And a 308, like I said, you can get to 1,000 meters. And whatever you hit with the 308 you ruin his whole day. Now, 5.56 will ruin your whole day, but it's not. 5.56 is a cartridge that was designed to wound for war. Why? Because a wounded soldier uses up more resources than a dead one. So. Nationalist says, what a brain drain the stock market is in the US. Instead of our smartest becoming engineers and inventors, they just run numbers at Wall Street. Yeah. And I know of one guy that was on Gab and he's just like gone silent now. Over a few years on Gab, and he shared everything he did. He made millions, then stopped the stock market, bought himself a nice big huge house with solar panels and like completely off grid with his girlfriend, and like still has enough money to fucking spend the rest of his life without having to work. Not stupid, you know, very intelligent guy, but how many people have got the discipline to do that for 16 years? Yeah, 16 years he was like obsessed by like the stock market, and then he just kicked it all in and he's got his money and he's like fucking sorted. Very smart move, right? If you start doing that in your 20s, 16 years, you're 36, still young, you can still do fucking everything. Brilliant, great. I thought about that when I was in my 20s. I looked at it and I was like, I can't do this. It's a soulless fucking black hole vacuum suck of death. Just, I couldn't do that shit. Adam says he endorses me as leader. Yeah, 1 hectare is 2.471 actual acres. Yeah, an acre is about 4,000 square meters. A hectare is about 10,000 square meters. So for you illiterate Americans that don't understand proper metrics, 100 meters by 100 meters is a hectare. 100 meters is roughly 333 feet. So if you get a square, that's 333 feet on a side. That's a hectare. An acre, you need about almost 2.5 acres to make a hectare. So way cheaper than here. I don't know where here is. I'm assuming you're in the States. If you are in the States, I don't know. I think there are places that are probably quite cheap in the States, but the thing in the States that kills you, I think, is like house taxes or something. You pay tax, you own your house, you paid everything off, but you still pay tax on it. I don't understand. I don't know. It's a weird thing. So, you guys tell me what you want to talk about. Do you want us to go on to the guns? Or do you want us to carry on with the babies and child rearing? Or something else? I'm going to leave it to the chat. There's 13 of you, just like the real apostles. Hopefully there is no Judas among you. Oh, another funny story. Today, while I was busy, no, it was yesterday, sorry, while I was busy clearing up around the tree that needed to come down, this old dude, you know, this older guy with a young pretty woman walking down my path going, hello, hello. Like, who the fuck's here, bro? Hello, hi. Like, oh, what a lovely place. And I'm like, so I walk up the path and I've got the scythe with me, okay? Because my little grass cutting, hedge trimming thing wasn't working. It wasn't going. So I took the scythe out, pissed off that I'm going to have to clear the brambles with the scythe. So I walk up to them with the scythe and I'm intentionally already got that face on me like, what the fuck do you want? And I'm doing it on purpose because I'm like, who are these people? Why are they walking into my property? Why are they bugging me? That's the kind of sensation I've got in, and that's the kind of look I have on me with my scythe of death, although it's green instead of black, so, you know. And they're like, oh, hi, hi. I'm like, yeah, what do you want? That's it, you know, like in Italian, but I'm like, yeah, what do you want? And he goes, oh, you've got a lovely place here, it's lovely. Oh, no one bothers you here. And I look at him like meaningfully, like, because I mean, except maybe some wolves or some boars. And I look, yeah, I got no problem with that. I prefer wolves and boars to human beings. What do you want? He's like, oh, well, turns his phone around. Have you heard what the Bible says about Jesus? And I'm like, listen, I'm a sedevacantist Catholic. Be on your way. Like that. Just like, be on your way. I turn around and, oh, okay then, have a nice day. I got Jehovah's Witnesses walking on foot into my property. You can tell I'm a good Catholic because they walked away. I allowed them to walk away. Sam Wereb says, the thing that kills the cheap heirs in America is the criminal underclass. Is it though? I mean, if you're out in fucking Montana or whatever, I mean, I've always... when I was a kid, I used to think quite romantically about Montana, although it's cold and I don't like the cold, so I don't think about it romantically anymore. But I thought, well, or I think actually nowadays, I think Wyoming would be the place, but it's also cold. But Wyoming, it's like, there's no one fucking there. You're not gonna get a bunch of like, urban parasites or whatever you want to call them, trying to accost you and harass you and rob you in the middle of Wyoming, are you? If you get a little 2 hectares, like on the side of a hillside in the middle of a forest in Wyoming, where you've only got a track to get to your like log cabin, and if somebody does come and bother you out there in Wyoming, well, with your 44 Magnum lever cowboy rifle, you goom goom, and hopefully you got a little digger loader so you don't have to use a shovel all the way. I don't know. I think there's a lot of America's huge. I think there's a lot of places in America that would be pretty cool to live, as long as you can keep away from the city, the federal government, and other human beings. The thing I hate about America is pretty much everything in it, apart from the geography, the land, and the guns. So, other than that, apart from everything else, and those three things are being good, it's a great country. No, honestly speaking, I wouldn't, if you paid me money, if you told me we'll give you 5 times what you have here in terms of land, property, and or even the equivalent, so that you can have a proper tractor there in the United States, I'd say no. But if I absolutely had to live there, if it was a life and death thing where you told me that I have to live in the USA, I would probably pick some absolutely rural place like Wyoming. And the reason I got to know a little bit about Wyoming is, funnily enough, watching the Prime series called Joe Pickett. I really enjoyed that series. I watched it together with my daughter, and we both really liked it. And then I thought, well, where's this shot? And I was, Wyoming. So I read up a little bit on it. And as far as I understand, Wyoming is the least urbanized state in the United States. It's got a huge amount of forest and lakes and stuff. Now, I'm an ocean guy, so funnily enough, I think another place that I would probably like is Florida, but I think it's overpopulated probably. Maybe Louisiana, some redneck place that's got swamps and water. But I've always, I can't help it, I'm Venetian. I was, the sea is kind of attracts me more than mountains and stuff like that. But I do like forests and things. I would feel a bit like something's missing if I wasn't near an ocean, if I wasn't near a seaside somewhere that was like within easy reach. And I believe Wyoming is in the middle of the United States, so that's kind of out a little bit for me. When I was thinking where to buy, and this was before COVID or anything like that, when I was thinking where to buy, the places I looked at was Panama. The thing I didn't like about Panama is that the tectonic plates on Panama suck. It's really bad. I also looked at French Guiana and Guadeloupe, the French islands, which now have got independence, by the way. But the problem with those places is that culturally and ethnically speaking, I would be a tiny minority there. And, if things go bad, it's always best if you're surrounded by people that are of your type, really, because you automatically become kind of the enemy if you're not. It's just life. It doesn't, it's got nothing to do with what you believe or what you know, whether you're a good guy or a bad guy. That's just how things work. Adam says, if you take a hit in sparring and want to transfer the impact force to a counterpunch, how long is the time frame from when you're hit to when you hit back? Depends on so many variables in that question. But the speed of it is determined by the guy who hits you. And usually a strike is pretty fast, so it has to be a continuation of that movement. So if the guy's like, and also it's not always possible, because if the guy's punch is just like a tack surface thing to like break your lip or break your face, break your skin, you're not really going to be able to do that. While if it's a proper, like he's really trying to knock you out and take your head off, and he like punches you, and you manage to like smoothly like run off it, then that will give you the impetus to carry on your strike. So it's, first of all, not always possible to be able to do that, to transfer that energy into a counter strike. And secondly, the speed and the velocity of it and all that is determined by the guy striking you, not by you. You have to react in tune with it. You have to be in a good rhythm, and you have to be able to pick up on it and just go with it. And it won't necessarily always be that you can do an effective strike from whatever position you end up in. You might be able to do you can do an effective strike from anywhere if you got, if you're doing Systema properly. But in most classical martial arts, they won't be able to look at that as, oh, that's not effective. You know what? A little side kick to your ankle is effective. A little random, poke you in the eye with my finger, if it hits you right in the eyeball, that's effective, But it's not classically considered, right? So, yeah. Oh, I got it. Good. I'm glad you understand. Okay, so come on, guys. Tell me what the topic is going to be here. Those of you that are in the States, I want to know about you guys, actually. There's 13 of you, hopefully not including the Judas. Tell me a little bit about you guys. Tell me where you guys live. Tell me what your opportunities are in terms of like going off grid, if you're interested in going off grid, and if you're just like, nah, I'm just going to hold it on the cities, and if the shit hits the fan, too bad, I'll be the leader of the zombies or whatever. I'm interested. Hello, Elia. Hello. Yeah, life is a funny thing. But yes, there's so anyway, the advice on the babies and stuff is like, have them young, enjoy the process. Absolutely do not believe the boomer bullshit that like, why would you bring a suffering child into this world? And I thought about that as well, actually. A good thing I reminded myself. So when I was thinking about that, I was like, I'm 54. I now have 5 children, but one of them is, my wife's child from a previous thing, and one of them is my child from a previous thing. And I was in my 40s before I had my first daughter. Now, the last 3 kids that we had together, the eldest is 4 years old. So I've started sort of really making kids quite properly when I was in my 50s after I became a Catholic. And I was thinking about, I'm advising like people in their 20s have children, and people are like, oh, well, and I was like, I bought into the boomer lie. I was raised with like, oh, life is pain and suffering, and why would you want to bring your child into this shit world and blah, blah, blah. Well, think about it. That, again, depends on your religion, right? It depends on your belief system, because if your belief system is that the world is suffering and pain and shit, and that's all there is to it, well then, yeah, bringing a child into it is kind of a bit cruel, right? Although, of all the people that are alive now, including all you guys, how many of you think life is so bad that you're just going to eat a bullet? Most people don't do that. So, however bad life is, it's still good enough that you want to carry on with it until you die naturally, right? So, can't be that bad, first of all. Secondly, if your philosophy is that life is so terrible, and and I was thinking, well, why did I think like that? And I thought, well, because I thought life was kind of like that. And I thought, well, what was my end point? Well, there wasn't an end. Oh, there I am. Yeah, I was thinking, so your philosophy matters, because I was kind of Zen agnostic with a bit of Shintoism. So I was like, well, what is the end point? Well, don't know. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. And if there is, maybe it's reincarnation, or maybe it's some kind of form of something similar to reincarnation, blah, blah, blah. And if that's it, what's the purpose? What's the point? What's the purpose? Why would it exist? So if you think it through, naturally you have to come to the conclusion that there is a purpose, because the atheistic, mathematically it doesn't make sense. I mean, I figured that out when I was like in my teens. In my teens, by reading biology and physics and chemistry, I figured out the maths doesn't make sense. It's not a random universe. You know, I briefly believed that from the ages of 7 to about 12, something like that, 13, not even, probably. And by the age of 16, I'd figured out that the maths didn't work. By the age of 19, I was absolutely certain of it, and I started to write concepts about, you know, what else could be happening. But then I spent most of the rest of my life in a sort of Zen agnostic. Yes, there's an intelligence behind creation, but it's probably sort of abstract, doesn't care about it. We're too small for it to be too important, blah, blah, blah. And then I had my road to Damascus moment and whatever. But the thing is, if you think it through, if you actually take the time to stop and think about it, then life has to have a purpose, and existence has to have a purpose. And if there is a purpose, is it a good one or a bad one? Now, if you believe that all of life, the final purpose of life is terrible, evil, and bad, then yeah, of course you wouldn't have kids. But is that the purpose of life? Is that what you feel in the depths of your heart? No. You know, there is a good and yes, and guess what? Again, Catholicism absolutely explains good, bad, why we're in a world that seems like it's full of evil and shit because it is under the dominion of Satan, blah, blah, blah. It explains everything. So it makes sense. And then if you're a Catholic, well, again, the relationship between the sexes is perfect. You know, it was until 1930, it was the Anglican Church that first brought in contraception. It was the Protestants that brought in contraception. It's an absolute blasphemy. And on my blog, I recently posted a video which, hat tipped to Adam Piggott because I got it off him. And the guy's a Novus Ordo, so I don't subscribe to everything he subscribes to, obviously. But it's one of the best explanations when he talks about contraception and why it's a massive fucking evil, it's an evil thing. And contraception leads to like sex before marriage or just for fun. And sex just for fun leads to divorce and stuff like that. And sex just for fun leads to abortion, which is murder. So, that's kind of like where it goes. And when you start to look into that, and then you start to think, well, yeah, why wouldn't want to have kids? Why wouldn't I want to have so many kids? And I started very late in life, but even discussing, this with my wife, we're like, like I said, she's had 3. So we've been together since 2017. So 6 years in April or something. From the time she moved into my place, which happened all on the same day we got together pretty much. So that was April. So it'll be 6 years in April, and we've got 3 kids. And unfortunately, she also had a miscarriage. So you could sort of think 4 pregnancies, right, in 6 years, which is kind of the going rate for Catholics. And she's like, man, I can't have another. We're already struggling as it is, like whatever, from practically financial, many ways. Like, we can't really have any more kids. Like, well, whatever. And but the reality is, she always does this. She starts off with like, no, this must got to be the last one. And it's like, I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna say anything. and then she's invariably the one. Like the last child we had, it was like, you do realize if we do this the way you are, the way I am, we're gonna have another kid. And she's like, and are you sorry we had the other 2? I was like, no, I don't have a problem with it. You're the one that has to do the whole pregnancy thing. And so the 3rd one came around, and the way she's, after that, she was like, no, David, I can't do anymore. I can't die, physically I can't handle it, mentally I can't handle it. I'm like, yeah, I just keep quiet. Now she's sort of like, if I was guaranteed it was a boy, I was like, so. And she told me, we were talking today, and she told me something really quite funny. She was saying how she knows this, or she meets this on the school run. She meets this Somali lady who, like, she sees, they're sort of on the same road at the time. And this lady's got 3 daughters. She's always got 3 daughters with her. And so my wife was also doing a school run with like three kids. And a baby, right? Like, so 3 kids and a baby. And cause my daughter, you know, I take her to school, whatever. So she's like, sees this lady, goes, "Oh, so you've got 3 daughters?" And the Somali lady goes, "No, I've actually got 6." And my wife's like, "Oh, 6, oh, that's great." And Somali woman was so shocked. She was like, "You're the first person that tells me that. When I tell people I've got 6 kids, they look at me like I'm crazy. They're like, 'Oh, how could you, you know? And like, how can you even handle it?'" And my wife was like, "Yeah, I know. It's kind of weird, isn't it? Like, people with 1 kid or 2 kids are like, 'Oh, I'm so tired. It's so difficult.' And I'm like, 'I've got 5.' And I'm like, 'Yeah, it's cool. You know, kind of, if I can have more, I'm going to have more.'" It's like, it's really, I'm telling you, there's nothing quite like having kids, and there's nothing quite like having a proper marriage, because I'm telling you from personal experience, you know, I'm not one of these guys that says, no sex before marriage and all the temptation is evil. I've done all that shit. I was not a Catholic most of my life. I was not in any way religious most of my life. All the degenerate shit that you can do sex-wise with women, I've done it. And I'm not telling you that it's not tempting. I'm not telling you that, you know, some of it isn't beautiful even, or certainly attractive, certainly fun. Sure. But it does not compare to having a proper marriage where you're in love, your wife loves you, you love her, and when you make love, you're basically making kids. There's nothing that approaches that. I would never, ever, ever trade. You know, when I was like 16, 17, 20, whatever, I used to, like, people asked me, "Oh, what do you want to do in life?" I was like, "Well, I want to have a 70-foot trimaran with an all-female crew of supermodels that like to massage me, you know, during and before and after the sex." And which 20-year-old guy wouldn't want that? 70-foot trimaran, all-female crew that like bangs you silly every day. Yeah. But if you told me now, you can have your life now with all its difficulties as it is, nothing changes, it's just the way it is now. Or you can have the 70-foot trimaran with an all-female crew, and we take 20 years off your age. So instead of 54, you're going to be 34 with the 70-foot trimaran, an all-female crew that are all into you, and you don't have to work ever again. You've got enough money to sail your 70-foot trimaran around the world to do whatever the fuck you want. Do you think that I would think about choosing the 70-foot trimaran for 1 second? No. Not a fuck. There's no way I'd pick the 70-foot trimaran. Not for a fucking second. You can think I'm lying. You can think I'm talking shit. But I'm not. I swear to you, on my children's lives, that I would not pick the 70-foot trimaran and 20 years younger to replace the life I have now. I absolutely fucking wouldn't. Now, you can say, "Oh, well, this guy's a freak." No, I've done all the degenerate shit. I've been with some very hot women. I've done all sorts of, like, you know, whatever you think is the sexiest kind of weird sex. I've pretty much been there. It doesn't touch it. It doesn't come anywhere close. So take it for what it's worth. You know, if you're 20 and you think this old dude doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about, buddy, I've done more and seen more than you probably ever will, because I was born at a time when a lot of shit could be done and you could get away with it without anyone knowing. Now you've got cameras on you 24/7, unless you're like in the Gobi Desert. And if you're in the Gobi Desert, you're probably not doing a lot of degenerate shit, unless you're doing it to fucking elk or something, or reindeer, in which case you're a real bad dude. Bad as in bad, not as bad as in cool. So, you know, I'm telling you, I've had all the pleasures of the flesh that you can pretty much possibly imagine. And it doesn't touch it. It doesn't touch a proper marriage where you're in love with your wife and where she loves you, and where, you know, you have children and you make children and you raise children. It doesn't come close. So, for what it's worth, listen to this. You know, like I said to my friend, You know, I've been through the boomer wars. We're Gen X. I'm Gen X. Gen X are the people that survived the boomers and all their bullshit, and we cracked that fucking Truman Show. So that the Gen Z, which is the millennials, are a lost fucking cause because they're basically younger, less useful, more useless boomers. They're the millennials. It's almost completely a lost generation. The boomers are absolutely the worst. Some millennials save themselves, but you know, my hope is in Gen Z and Gen Alpha, which is my child, my boy. Gen Alpha is fucking laser focused already, but Gen Z is my hope. You know, there's a lot of like wishy-washy Gen Z people, but the Gen Z guys that are like on, like this friend of mine, this guy reads he's bought a 3-volume tomes just on the book of Job of the Bible, and I'm like, I kind of hate the book of Job. I still don't get it, and it's like harsh. And he's like, I know. That's why I got this commentary on it. I want to understand it. I was like, fuck me. And he kind of reminds me of me at his age because, you know, I used to read tomes of philosophy and all sorts. I read like stuff from Krishnamurti to the Bhagavad Gita to the Quran to the pretty much everything except Catholicism. So, you know, the New Age stuff. And so I was interested. I was curious. And I was reading, you know, books that most people like double my age wouldn't read. And he's doing the same thing, but he's on the right path. He's found the truth and he's deepening it. And it's absolutely fascinating. It really is great to see a young guy doing that. And here's Gen Z. Oh my God, another one. Where did they come in from? It's a Chinese stink bug, you know. These guys came from China. China! The China stink bug. Well, all right, stink bug. Let's murder another one of your kind. Because you're absolutely... Oh. I'm losing my touch. Usually I get these guys the first couple of shots. Get out of my Olivetti, you bastard. All right. Hey, told you you die. I always warned them. Tell them, get out of here, stink bug, or I'll kill you. You just don't listen. You call my bluff, and it's not a bluff. Anyway, okay. Let me catch up with the chat and see if you guys have given me a topic to rant to you about. Where are we? Let's see. I'm in British Columbia's interior. I think I know where British Columbia is, but let me just double check. Boston. Right. I think British Columbia is one of those places where quite a bit of H.P. Lovecraft stuff has been set. It's sort of fascinating me a little bit. It's kind of foggy, right? I think. Adam says, getting your wife pregnant is the best. She's in a good mood every day. Don't need to deal with her on the rag. Party at the end when you have a new kid. Yeah, I don't know. Slanty Chauffeur Bear says, got a few scattered acres all over California and one property in Nevada. Well, you're doing well, good man. All near dams with small communities and cities. Great neighbors who are all on the same page for most things. With the exception of one former Novus Ordo Sicilian, most people seem to open to discussing sedevacantism. Yeah, I think in the States also because most people in the States aren't really aware of what Catholicism is to begin with. The Sicilian guy, if he's a hardcore Sicilian, you're not going to change his mind about anything. But I would irritate if I was me, that's just me, I would irritate the crap out of him every time Bergoglio does some heretic shit. I'd be like, oh, there's your servant of Satan and the protector of pedophiles. That's the latest one he's done now, just to upset him. Because those people don't learn, so you might as well entertain yourself with them. You know, I should really do a little series on sedevacantism. That's, well, I mean, it's on Kurgan TV for those of you that are there. But I should do like a sort of Cliff's Notes version of sedevacantism. One thing that's been a little bit disturbing lately is I injure myself like this. I sprained a finger, my fuck you finger, and I have no idea how I did it. It's like, you know, I was working yesterday as well, like, what the fuck was I? I was cutting wood, I can't remember what I was, chopping something, yeah, chopping wood, cutting wood, doing something. And then in the evening I was like, oh, it actually hurts to bend the finger. Like, how the fuck did I don't even remember when I did it. And that's been happening quite a bit. It's like I'll do something and then, you know, later at night I'll be like, oh, I've got it. Oh, my back is like, oh, my neck. I just put it down to increasing wisdom. So, anyway, you guys are not giving me any topics, so I'm just going to talk about whatever the hell I want to talk about. Oh, there's so many topics. I mean, like, one of them is I've got an idea for a new book, fiction book. I know it would do well. I don't know if I have the time to do it. Maybe if I do it as a little novella, but the thing is, it's such a cool idea that it lends itself to, well, let me just put it this way. This cool idea I have, I can't really write it a novella because it lends itself to this kind of size of book. And just so you know, it's not the fisheye lens. I put it right next to my head so you can see. It's this is the maximum limit of what Amazon will allow you to build as a physical book, because it is exactly, I don't want to lie to you now, the limit on Amazon is 828 pages, and this one is exactly 828 pages. And I had to work hard to make sure it fit in there, because this is the omnibus edition of my Overlords of Mars. It's got all the 3 books in it. By the way, that link I said right at the top, so you can get this in digital format for a lot less, direct from my website, or you can buy it on Amazon. So far, the people that have started reading or finished reading have all told me it's great. I've asked them to please give me a review, because it helps. But anyway, the new book I'm thinking of writing, it's got nothing to do with this, completely different setting, setup, but it certainly lends itself to this kind of final product. And the problem is that after this, in this theme, potentially, you know, this is the trilogy, this is the omnibus trilogy, but my trilogy on this topic was always going to be 4 books. There's another book coming eventually. Hopefully it won't be another 10 years. I'll make sure it's not. I'll make sure it comes out within a year or 2. The 4th book can stand on its own, but it's a kind of a continuation of this. But that 4th book also lends itself to another trilogy. Kind of like the Hyperion series. You know how the Hyperion series started out with 1 book, 2, 3, and then it became Ilium, and then it became Olympus, you know. And they're like kind of the size books, Dan Simmons. Anyway, you know, if you guys like the stuff I do, please support my work in terms of giving me at least the reviews if you're not buying my books. Or if you if you are buying my books and reading them and you like them, give me a review. It doesn't cost you that much, you know, to like spend a bit of my time to do that. But yeah, so it's another concept I have about it ties in Catholicism, sedevacantism, and Sodalitium Pianum. For those of you who go to the ebooks, there's a free download there that talks about Sodalitium Pianum and Benigni. And I'm thinking, what would that look like if there was Sodalitium Pianum today? You know? So yeah. So it's funny how getting injured makes you smarter. I wish that were true. You know, I did start out with 150 plus IQ, 157, 5. No, I took two official tests, 157 and 152. So around 150. I started out with a 155 in my mid to late 20s. And if injuries made me smarter, I'd probably have a 300 IQ by now. So I don't think that really is true for some of us. I skipped a couple. What did I skip? DTW. What did I skip? Oh, sorry, mate. I did skip a couple. DTTW says, have you read Discourses on a Sober and Temperate Life by Luigi Cornaro? There's a section I thought you would like. I have not, but thank you for the suggestion. I will go and look up what that is. Huge. Buy one Kurgan book, get a weapon free. Yeah, it really is. I mean, my dad a long time ago did a little video on like, anything can be a weapon, including a book. And yeah, this one, you take it like this and you like whack somebody on the height of the head. I guarantee you it's better than a slap. You know, it is. It's a poem. But it's 3 books in one. The first book sort of is an introduction to the whole thing. Let me give you I could have written the 3rd book a lot bigger, but I had to stay within I wanted to do this omnibus edition, so I had to stay within a certain size. Let me just, I could have definitely made the 3rd book bigger, but anyway, this is the split, so you get an idea. So this is the first book, which just kind of introduces all the characters and a lot of the concepts, because a lot of the concepts most people haven't got a clue about. This is the second book, which is very cinematic. You could easily make this into a film. You know, if you were going to make this whole into a film, the intro part would be like maybe half hour. This would be the meat of the story, and would be like, you could make it anything from like 1.5 hours to 2.5 to 3 hours. And this, the 3rd part of the book, you could make this into another 2-3 hours. You could make this into a 4-hour one if I really stretched it out a bit more. But definitely a trilogy. You could definitely do this as a, you know, if you joined the 1st and the 2nd book, and then you expanded the 3rd one a bit, you could do this as a 2-part like film, 4 hour, 2 hours, 2 hours, something like that. And it would be cool. And you know, and I mean, you can stretch it. You could do like The Expanse, you know, that series. You could easily do that with this, and you could have like years and years of series just on these books, because I could expand any one of those to like. But as is, I think it would definitely make a very good 2-hour films. You could do a very good job with that. And then the other books I want to write, you know, if I had infinite time, if I could live just off writing, I'd be churning these books out. You know, you got to keep in mind that the 3rd book had been written about to 30% and then left there for 10 years. And it's a very involved plot. The plot lines in this are, some of them resolved, not all of them. A bunch of them resolve only in the next books. And that plot lines were there from the beginning. So there's very involved plot lines, very huge number of people and characters and situations. So I had to, after 10 years that I haven't touched the stuff, I had to go back and like reread stuff and everything. And I started in October. I started mid-October, and I thought, I got to finish this by the 12th of December. I just set that date. So in 2 months, I finished the 3rd book. catching up all the plot lines and linking them all back in, and it flows, so it's pretty seamless. You can't tell the difference. If I could live off my writing, I could produce a quality, decent book on fiction or non-fiction every month. I genuinely could do that. I know that I can do that because I've done it. I've tested myself on it. And it would be like full-size books. They wouldn't be like, little fucking 20-page novellas or something. I am actually toying with putting together a little anthology of short stories and possibly poems and stuff, which I've written over the years. But I don't know if that would just be for myself. I don't think that would be a big seller or anything. But yeah, I've got some ideas on books that I know would do well, but it's the time to, because when I write, I'm like with everything, I'm pretty obsessive, and I just get down there and I just do that. I can write 15,000 words a day, and then you got to clean it up afterwards, fine. But a book is about, a normal size book is about between 70 and 120,000 words. I've written books that are like, my non-fiction books are around 200,000 words, and they're like quite thick. I think this is around, I can't remember, I think it's around close to 400,000, something like that. But I can, if you're writing 10, 15,000 words a day, that means in 2 weeks you've written a full-size book, and then you take another 2 weeks to clean it up and like check the grammar and the spelling and stuff like that. Do a cover, and I can have a book out a month. So if you guys want to help me out, buy my books by the pallets, sponsor me, go to the Kurganet and send me money. Go to my blog and sponsor a tree with a name of a saint, which will also get you prayers and a mass once a year. The more money I can, if I can, like I said, I only need like $3,000 a year. It's not a lot of money. If there's like 1,000 of you and you give me $3 a year, that's all I need to survive. And I'd write you a book every fucking, I'd write you a book every month. So if there's 100 of you, no, sorry, I mean, if there's 1,000 of you, it's $3 a month. Yeah. $3 a month for 1,000 of you, which over a year is, it's $33. $33 a year if there's 1,000 of you. If there's 100 of you, it's $330, a year, which I get it. $330 is quite a bit, but so, and I'm not telling you to send me that yourself. What I'm saying is like spread my blog, spread the links, spread the videos, because the bigger audience I get, I'm like, Henry Ford in that respect. I'd rather make my living off a tiny, tiny amount of money from as many people as possible than a lot of money from as few people as possible. I would love it if and look, the thing is, like a guy I know, a friend of mine says, man, your books are amazing. You're just not known enough. If people knew about you, you could live off your writing. It's good. I like your science fiction. I like your non-fiction. And I think it's right, So, and I'm sure there's enough people that would buy my book and enjoy them. And not just this one. If you go to that website, you'll see all the digital ones. There are going to be at least three more books that you can always get the physical one from Amazon, right? But I'm converting them all to digital. The reason I hadn't done that with a lot of books is because the conversion sucked. It just didn't work. But I've now got the software that does a very good job of it. I have to do it myself, so it takes a bit of time. And also I've got some contracts in place, so I can't do the digital editions for these other 3 books until February. But as soon as they're those things have got a deadline and they end, I've told them, okay, that's it. So after February, they'll all be digitalized as well. And then hopefully I'm also going to write, there's 2 other books I want to write. One is on relationships, like men and women, the whole generic thing. Got to be very politically incorrect, so I don't know that one will go on Amazon because they would probably ban me. So I might just be in a digital version of that. And then there's other concept I've got, and then the continuation of the Overlords of Mars. So I've got plenty of stuff that I'd like to write about, but Adam says, I agree. I'll try and spread your name out there more. Thank you. I'm taking off. I'm trying to stay dry. Stay strong later. Good. Adam, my best suggestion to you, I don't know you, I don't really know what you're doing, but I could tell from the stuff that you were making, the comments that you were doing and so on. Stop drinking, buddy. You really got to quit that. And thank you for your support and all that. I appreciate it. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to tell you when you're being an idiot. So, okay. Right, the rest of you, I think you're all kind of fading out. It's been an hour 30. Unless I get some cool comment that inspires me to continue talking about something, I'm also going to call it quits. I'll give you guys a couple of minutes in case you want to ask anything. Slanty Chauffeur Bear seems to be doing well there. Slanty, I don't know what your situation is, but if you're a millionaire, hey, come buy some land out here too. Help a man out. Get me a tractor. Be a proper. You'll have a plan C. It looks like you got a plan A, B, and C already. You can have a plan F or G. Out here in Italy. Wooly Ram, hello, sir. Wooly, you've got one chance to rescue this from me saying goodnight to like something else. No, come up with a couple of topics. I am going to go refill my Aperol Spritz and get some Aperol Spritz out of my body. So I'll be a minute or two. You've got a chance to bring up whatever topic you want, Wooly, and we'll talk about it. And maybe if you want, I don't know, it's probably not a good day for you, but bring you on if you're free. Okay. All right, I'm back. Wooly Ram, well, I've been doing a deep dive into nutrition, and to no surprise, it's all lies and junk science. Yep. I don't have any specific topics in mind, but I'm free tonight if you want to chew the fat. Well, I want to make it worthwhile if we're going to chew the fat. So I got to tell you, sorry, but other than what I said right at the beginning about olive oil, which I'm going to be able to sell off my site to, I think, anywhere in the world, I'm going to go fill my Aperol Spritz, Wooly. Second chance. Don't often give people two chances. All right. Let's shut the door so that hopefully no more stink bugs come. And here's my Aperol Spritz, like I said, heretically in a German beer glass. Okay. Sam says, looking forward to seeing the olive oil project coming to fruition. Thank you, sir. I hope so too. YTFM says, been wanting to write to you for long, but there's so much I want to tell you. Catching you live, I'll just say hi. Where do you suggest I start? Wherever you want, dude. I don't know you at all, so just bring up a topic that interests you and let's see if it interests me. Hi, Sam. Wooly says, well, I've been doing... Okay, no, I've done the deep dive. I'm wondering, it looks like some things popped up afterwards. One thing that is on my mind is how everything is being revealed. It is. All the lies are being brought to light, which is making me think about Revelation Apocalypse. Indeed. And if it is the apocalypse, I gotta tell you, I'm not particularly worried, certainly for myself. I've said this plenty of times before, but if it is the end times, let's say it is the apocalypse. First of all, no one knows. Not even Jesus knows the time or the hour, so I don't stress about that at all. Because if Jesus doesn't know, I sure as crap don't. And all those people that say, oh, maybe this and this sign and that, I don't care. It makes no difference. There are two possibilities. One, this is just three possibilities, sorry. One, this is just one of the periodic shit shows that happens in the history of Catholicism. When I say the history of Catholicism, just to be clear, I mean the history of Christianity, because Christianity is Catholicism and vice versa. Anything else is heresy. Let us be clear. And I include, of course, Bergoglio and the Vatican retinue of imposters in the Vatican. The only Christianity is Sedevacantism, Catholicism, to be clear. So if you're not a Sedevacantist Catholic, you're not a Christian. Christianity has gone through periods of darkness like this one, the Arian heresy being one of the more well-known ones, where something like 99% of the bishops were all Arians. They were going along with the Arian heresy, which is basically say Jesus wasn't God, wasn't divine. And guess what? Lo and behold, supernaturally protected church, whoop, carries on anyway. So it could be one of those things. That's option one. Option two, there are many, many prophecies not just in Catholicism, but especially in Catholicism, that predict a really dark time for Christianity, for Catholicism, where it'll almost be as bad as the end times, but then in the end, there's going to be like some king slash emperor slash guy that will also help reinstate the papacy properly, who apparently begins in France. France will be almost as extinguished as a nation, as a country. It will almost disappear, and then that fire will catch fire for the rest of Europe. But then the papacy will be restored. There is the prophecy of the papacy itself becoming satanic and all that, which has clearly been happening for the last 60 years. And it'll be a very dark time, but eventually we kind of win, and then there's going to be 1,000 years of beautiful Christianity, and after that, the end times comes, the really bad shit. Or we're already in the end times, which to my mind kind of makes sense, because there's supposed to be some period in Christianity where there's like 1,000 years of good times, and then sort of after that Satan gets released and all his demons, and that's when the end times come. And in the end times, pretty much almost everybody dies, pretty much almost everybody goes to hell. Only a very tiny remnant of people remain faithful to the faith, and even they would lose their faith if it wasn't that God comes in the second coming, Jesus, and slashes all the bad dudes. And the thing is, if I think about it, from after the crucifixion and the resurrection of Jesus, if you take that 1,000 years, Christianity was kind of growing. Then from the year 1000 to the year 2000, you could look at it as that being kind of the best part of Christianity. That's when all the churches were built. That's when civilization essentially was created. You could also look at it from, say, about the year 300 and something, AD, when the Bible was put together. And if you count 1,000 years from then, it takes you up to about 1,300 or so, which, makes it sort of, again, kind of the good times, if you like it. And if you think when Jesus died at age 33, so 2033 is 2,000 years. So you've got 1,000 years of growth and 1,000 years of the best times or whatever, and then it's the bad times. So 2033 could be sort of the apocalypse sort of time, and it's kind of looking like it's heading that way. All the banks have changed the laws so they can repossess everything. All the governments have changed a bunch of laws. The WHO has made it's trying to make their suggestions for any pandemics absolute law that countries have to respect and enforce by force. So, maybe it's the apocalypse. But my point is, it doesn't matter. Your job, if you're a faithful Catholic, is to be a faithful Catholic and carry on. Fight back, bend to nothing, fuck them. They'll either kill you or you'll be one of the last few remaining. If they kill you and you're die in good faith, you're going to heaven. Purgatory, then heaven. So what? Again, if you're worried about this stuff, read the book for knights, for fighting Catholic knights, written by Saint Bernard. Brilliant little book that tells you, well, you're a Catholic and you're fighting for God. You're on the side of Jesus. So if you die in combat, who cares? You're going to heaven. What fear have you got of death? Nothing. So why worry? YTFM says, a Protestant friend objected to praying to Mary. So I explained it's like asking a friend to pray for you. Then he brought up communication with dead. So I said, she's alive. Was just winging it. Read Chesterton, G.K. Chesterton, and what he says about the communion of the saints. So, in Protestantism, which is, a childish, Calvinistic, nonsensical, heretical belief, they're just playing at being Christians, and it's like, well, when you're dead, you're dead. No. When you're dead, you're either in purgatory, in hell, or in heaven. And there's examples in the Bible of people that died coming back and talking to people that are here. So it's in the Bible. Again, if you're a Protestant, clearly, Protestants don't read their Bibles. I like telling them that, because that's what they accuse Catholics of. But the reality is Protestants don't read. They don't know how to read. Protestants are illiterate, and they do not read the Bible. So that's it, really. Woolly Ram says, or a reflection of the apocalypse. Either way, we have our marching orders. Precisely. Mother Mary is more alive than any of us. Again, But look, if you like Protestant bashing, YT, go to my blog. There's a search me on the right. Click on search me and type in Protestants, and you will get enough cannonballs there for the rest of your life to be able to crush Protestants at every turn. And if you want a specifically good one, type into that search me function on my blog, James White. Dr. James White. Because they like to say they're doctors. James White. Take that guy to pieces, and he's one of the hardcore Protestants of the years. He's a great Protestant theologian. He literally can't think himself out of his own shoe size. It's sad. Well, in that case, I will just tell you about the ballistic difference between a 308 and a 5.56, because on that SFAR, which is a Ruger semi-automatic assault rifle that only weighs about 7 pounds, and you can get it in 308 or 5.56. And my friend was asking me, well, why get the 308? And it's like, well, because the 308 is a much heavier bullet. With the 308, you can reach out to 1,000 meters if you're good, if you know what you're doing. And, if you just train at least a little bit, 600 to 800 meters, absolutely doable. Ruger rifles over the last few years have come out with absolutely amazing accuracy. My Ruger rifle out of the box, it does half minute of arc consistently, brilliantly. 10 years ago, getting a half minute of arc rifle out of the box was was unheard of. Ruger is doing that with pretty much everything they produce rifle-wise. So, and the SFAR is a light assault rifle. It's semi-automatic, so it's good to 600 to 800 with minimum of training is absolutely doable. Semi-auto, so it's quick, it's light, you can carry it and run around the hills all day long. So if I could only have one rifle, I'd get that. In fact, if I had the money, I'd buy one anyway. I've got a 300 Winchester Magnum, which is good out to a half kilometer and a half if you know what you're doing. I'm presently with very, very little minimal training. I mean, I've been shooting all my life, but whatever, many tiny amount of training, I'm good to 1,000 meters now. And with a bit more training and a bit more practice and a bit more learning my gun and that in different conditions, wind, rain, etc., I'll reach out to 1,500. But it's a 300 Win Mag. 308, same size round, but it's really only good to about 1,000. But 1,000 is good enough, and it's a much lighter rifle. I mean, mine's more than twice that weight. So YTFM says, please be easy because I was Protestant, but I'm still pretty illiterate myself. GK Chesterton and James White, thanks. Yeah, if you go to my James White, go to my blog, gfilotto.com, and search me and type in James White. That'll give you enough. And then after you've read that blog post, type in Protestants or Protestantism, just keywords relating to Protestants. You'll get enough blog posts, once you've read all of them, the idea of being Protestant will be absolutely ridiculous to you. And as far as reading go, get G.K. Chesterton. If I had come across G.K. Chesterton in my 20s, I probably would have become a Catholic 30 years sooner, 20 years faster. Because I read C.S. Lewis, I read Mere Christianity, which people like, oh, it's so brilliant. Didn't convince me of jack shit, because C.S. Lewis was British, and kind of comes close to the point, and then he beats around the bush, and he doesn't like get to it. It's like, just answer the question, man. G.K. Chesterton writes a sentence that makes you think, well, this is absurd. This man is crazy. Obviously, what he just wrote there is absolute nonsense. And then you read 3 more sentences, and you're like, oh, he's absolutely right, and I was wrong. And it's like, it really is. He's a very, very good writer. So I would recommend him. All right. So the difference between a 308 and a 556. 556, you might get out to 500-600 meters, but the 556 round is a tiny bullet that's traveling usually at around 3,000 or more feet per second. That's a kilometer per second, roughly. And it, like my dad's got a Mini 14, right, where he is. When you shoot a Coke can, an empty Coke can, it's about that big, on the front of the Coke can, you've already got like the main hole, and you've got like tiny little flecks around it. The back of the Coke can is gone. It's just like a big hole. So you think, oh great, this does a lot of wound. No, it really doesn't. Because let's say you hit a guy like just there, right? It's not a kill shot right away, but you've got lungs there. If you hit it with a 556 and it hits, let's say, a rib, it'll kind of break that rib, make a big chunky mess about that big, like a little explosion, and maybe fragments of it will be stuck inside you, and maybe the main bullet, if it's still big enough, might come out your back. It's a nasty wound. It certainly cripples you. It's going to fuck up your whole day. I'm not saying you'll just walk it off, but you'll probably survive it. And that's the point of the 556. It's a bullet. It's a round that's designed to wound. Why? Because in war, the more wound that the other guy has, the more logistics he has to use up. The more soldiers he has to use up to look after the wounded guys. The more like money, medicines, food. They still eat. They still drink. You still have to look after them. And so it degrades the other guy's general economy and logistics support. And that's why the 556 was designed. It was a bullet designed to wound, so that you can create as many wounded guys on the other side. Now, that might work very well if you're a bean counter in the back echelons back home where nothing's fucking happening. If you're the actual soldier, like on the trench, you want whatever you shoot at to die as soon as it gets hit, because that gives you the best chance of survival. Secondly, if you're not a soldier, you're in the apocalypse, you're now a shit hits the fan, oh, there's mutants coming at me and zombies. Again, you want whatever the fuck you shoot at to die and stay down. Now, if a 308 round hits you here, it'll go straight the fuck through you, puncture your lung, and come out the other side, even if it hits the rib. Which means you will eventually die within a few, could be an hour, it could be 5 minutes. But while you're coughing up blood because your lung has been completely punctured, you're not really going to be interested in doing anything else other than coughing up and dying. Plus, that round, even in, relatively bad conditions like a bit of wind, fog, whatever, it'll reach out to 1,000 meters properly, effectively. So the 308 is the superior round. It's a little bit heavier, of course, to carry all, it's got a bit more powder and so on, but them's the facts. Only the facts, ma'am. Wooly says, I like Lewis's parsimony, but it's not very convincing for most people. Yeah, it's not. I'm sorry, but that whole English, I said it without saying it, just doesn't do it for me. Use a sledgehammer and make sure that when you hit properly and it goes all the way in. That's how theology should be done as far as I'm concerned. And Chesterton does it that way, but also sublimely subtle and yet profound in a way that you can't deny. So it's very, very good. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, or rather gentlemen and gentlemen, because I don't think there are any ladies tonight. There's only 12 of you, like the proper apostles. I'm going to bid you good night, as tomorrow I have to help my friend to get back home, so I'm going to take him to the station and so on. And yeah, we now have our first set of acanthus that's bought property here, and is now, we measured it. It's on the road, 2.5 kilometers from my house, in a straight line, probably about 1.5 kilometers. Exactly. Woolly Ram says Chesterton somehow fences with a club. Quite. I would say that Chesterton was probably... Chesterton was an épée man. The foil is fake. The saber is kind of brutish, but the épée is brutal, yet dignified and honorable somehow. Yes. Good night all. Good night, Woolly Ram, and all of you. I hope rest well, be well, and God bless every one of you. Thank you and good night.